Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. This was our last argument before heading to court, right after Barbara was served the divorce papers. We were both playing our parts, like actors on a stage. I pretended I wanted to work things out and save the marriage, but in reality, the moment I saw the photograph of her kissing Bradley Jacobson, I knew our 35-year marriage was over. It was already decided, and when I watched the first few minutes of the private investigator's video, I mentally buried our relationship for good. I wasn't sure what Barbara was pretending. Maybe she thought we could still discuss her ongoing affair, or maybe she believed we could come to some agreement where she could stay married to me while continuing her relationship with Bradley. Barbara Smith, my wife, a lawyer, and Bradley, one of her assistants. Barbara's professionalism lay in her ability to make irrational things seem rational, an ability she clearly brought home from work. At home, she used this skill freely. "Oscar, be reasonable," was her favorite phrase throughout our 35-year marriage. But after I filed for divorce, she came up with a new favorite: fragile male ego. For example, "Oscar, it's not about who I'm seeing or not seeing. It's about your fragile male ego." I began to hate that phrase, so it wasn't surprising that our last conversation didn't last long before she said it again. "Oscar, if you could just deal with your fragile male ego, you'd see that none of this threatens you." She smiled warmly, as if trying to reassure me. "I don't love him, and in a few months, this will all be over. We can still have our happy ending." You had to give Barbara credit for her boldness. She said all this while absent-mindedly tracing the rim of her wine glass with her fingers. On the kitchen table beside her lay a manila folder containing the divorce papers and incriminating photos from the investigator. But Barbara was still talking about being reasonable, as if I could just set aside my fragile male ego and save our marriage. The problem was that Barbara thought we were still negotiating, while I had already mentally checked out. I just wanted it all to end. "Barbara, can we pause for a moment?" I interrupted her mid-sentence. "You keep mentioning my fragile male ego, and that if I could just get over it, everything would be fine. What exactly do you mean by that?" She stopped, frowning slightly, clearly annoyed by my interruption. "It's simple, Oscar. You're afraid of competition. You're worried you won't measure up." She smiled, this time with a hint of pity. "But don't worry, you're still my man." "And Bradley?" I asked, watching her blush slightly. "Bradley?" She hesitated for a moment before responding. "Bradley is just a distraction, like a gym membership. I'm not replacing you or stopping loving you. There's nothing for you to worry about." I looked at her with mild bewilderment, the kind of expression husbands use when they want their wives to feel superior, usually to deflect attention. "So, just to be clear, you think I'm afraid that you'll stop loving me or replace me with someone younger?" She nodded, her smile growing wider. "And you think that makes me insecure? That I need support?" I asked, dragging out the words as if trying to grasp something. "Exactly, darling, there's nothing to worry about," she repeated, patting my hand in a patronizing gesture. "And this insecurity is because I'm a man?" I asked, barely containing my irritation. "Oh, Oscar, it's not just about you," she said, her smile now triumphant. "All men have fragile egos. It's our job as wives to help you stay confident so you remain stable." I wanted to explode, to demand an explanation of how a relationship with a 35-year-old could support me, but I knew that if I gave in to my emotions, she would only dig her heels in further. Barbara suddenly became fascinated with this nonsense from popular psychology about how women are stronger than men, and it didn't surprise me at all. We had been avoiding these topics for years, but I was exhausted. We were nearing the end of our road, and I was tired of pretending to agree. "Barbara, you've been talking about this for a long time now," I said, looking her straight in the eye, "and I've been turning a blind eye. After 35 years together, I've learned to pick which battles to fight. But today, if I wanted her to remember one thing, it would be this. This whole argument was complete absurdity. She tried to interrupt me, but I wasn't going to let her throw me off. The reason people talk about the fragile male ego is because it's truly unusual. You've seen the videos. How often have you seen a man get hit in his most vulnerable spot?" She nodded, acknowledging the truth of my words. For a moment I thought she might back down, but I knew her better than that. Often, she admitted. Exactly, I continued. And it seems funny, at least from a woman's point of view, because men appear so strong, but one hit can take us down, and we're left writhing, gasping for air. Do you understand what I'm saying? I asked. She nodded again, but I wasn't going to stop. Now, imagine if a woman were hit in the same way. Nobody would laugh, right? She agreed. Why not? If one person's pain seems funny, why isn't the other's? Because it's cruelty, she answered. When a man hits a woman, it's cruelty. And when a woman hits a man, isn't it? I shook my head. Forget it. That's not the point. The point is, we don't laugh when a woman is hurt because society tells us women are fragile, weak. So when a woman cries, nobody finds it funny. She looked puzzled, so I pressed on. It's the same with ego. At work, my friends constantly joke about my job, my body, my hair, anything they can find, and I just let it pass. Now imagine if your friends did that to you. Imagine going to work every day and they constantly point out your most painful insecurities. How would you feel? Oh God, she said, horrified. I can't imagine women doing that to each other. Definitely not all the time. Exactly. But that's what we strong men do. We laugh it off, make jokes, and move on. I patted her hand lightly, unsure if she caught the hint of condescension in my voice. The truth is, the only place I allow myself to be fragile, vulnerable, is here, at home. Here, I lower my defenses, take off the armor, and show my soft side, hoping you won't take advantage of it. What you call my fragile male ego is just my willingness to be vulnerable in the one place I feel safe. Do you understand? Barbara smiled and nodded, but I could see she was already preparing to argue. Yes, Oscar, she said. Here you're safe. You can be vulnerable. I'm not going to destroy what we've built over some meaningless affair. I sighed, taking off my glasses and pinching the bridge of my nose. You still don't get it, Barbara. I believed you when you said I was the best lover you've ever had, even though I knew that couldn't be true. How could it be? I've only had one partner in 35 years. I forced a weak smile. I believed you when you said I was enough for you, that my size was perfect, that my body still excited you. I took you at your word, even when I knew you were just flattering my ego. I chose to trust you, to be vulnerable with you, because I thought you wouldn't betray that trust. But you did, I shouted, slamming my hand on the table. Barbara's eyes widened in shock, and she fell silent. I took a deep breath, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. It's been about a year since I started noticing how carelessly you've been treating my vulnerability. The way you reacted when I undressed, how you averted your eyes in moments of intimacy, it was impossible to ignore. And those comments you made, which seemed like innocent suggestions about how I should go to the gym more often or drink less beer, I heard every one of them. She looked at me, stunned, but I didn't stop. I began to notice changes in our connection. You stopped sharing the little details of your day and stopped asking about mine. You were around less and less. Even before Bradley came into the picture, I already felt that you were no longer the safe place you used to be. You were no longer the one who protected my feelings. I paused, feeling a tightness in my throat. She, a lawyer, had lost her words? I kept my gaze fixed on hers, not looking away. Her eyes glistened, and I knew mine did too. But I held back the tears. Barbara, I tried. I really tried. I took you to dinner more often, complimented your outfits. I planned trips for just the two of us, made time for us to be together. I did everything I could to remind you how much you meant to me. I dressed better, started working out again. I hoped it would bring back memories, remind you of how important I used to be to you. I looked at my hands, fighting back tears again. Not now. I couldn't let her see me break. I couldn't afford to be vulnerable anymore. But nothing worked. It wasn't enough. You always had reasons to cancel our dinners, explanations for why we couldn't go on trips. When I told you how beautiful you looked, I saw in your eyes that you were thinking about whether I knew you were dressing for him. And when I sent flowers to your office, your silence was deafening. I looked at her again. Later, when you started picking fights just to avoid spending time with me, I knew I had lost. You forgot that I was once special to you, and as a result, you lost that special place in my heart too. I never used arguments as a reason to avoid intimacy. I sighed in frustration. Seriously? Was that all she took away from this? Barbara, why can't you be honest? If not with me, then at least with yourself. For the past year, you've been pushing me away. She shot me a quick glance, then lowered her eyes to her hands again, hands that still felt so familiar to me. I shrugged slightly. Yeah, back then my ego was fragile. I spent a lot of time in my office mourning the slow death of what we had. I tried to hold on, to create the appearance of strength, the same strength I show at work, so you wouldn't see how much you had hurt me. I started finding reasons to avoid home, to avoid someone who seemed determined to hurt me without bothering to hide it. She looked shocked, and I smiled slightly, lightly touching her hand. But you'll be glad to know my fragile ego has healed. I've filled my life with new things, found people who made me feel valued again. She looked up, and I saw a glimmer of curiosity in her eyes. I couldn't help but smirk. No, I didn't cheat on you, but I did notice that some of the women at the gym were less annoyed by my presence. When I gathered enough evidence and started talking to a lawyer, you had no idea how shattered my fragile ego had been. Is that it? I thought so. I'd said everything I needed to, and for the first time I believed she finally heard me. Maybe now we could find a way to move forward. But of course I was married to a lawyer. For her, there are no lost cases. Oscar, that wasn't necessary, she shouted. Yes, I was distracted, I admit it. But I never stopped loving you. In my heart you were always number one. I'm sorry I didn't realize how much I was hurting you, how fragile you were. Barbara kept talking, painting vivid pictures with her words, but I had already stopped listening. The word, fragile, surfaced again. She still didn't understand, and I suddenly realized she probably never would. I wasn't going to soften the blow anymore. Barbara, stop, I said sharply. I knew she could hear the irritation in my voice, despite my attempts to suppress it. I took a slow, deliberate breath. You really don't get it, do you? You're convinced this is about me, about my fragility, about some fragile male ego, right? There's nothing wrong with that, I continued, keeping my tone steady. Everyone, men, women, has an ego that's fragile to some extent. We all rely on those we love to protect it. But yes, men can be particularly sensitive in this area. I leaned forward, holding back the sarcasm that was ready to burst out, though she certainly wasn't making it easy for me. Let me tell you a little secret. Barbara, for most of our 35 years, I've been careful with the truth when it came to you. When you asked if that lipstick was right or if that dress was too tight, I had to find words that told the truth without hurting you. I didn't want you going out looking like a clown, or worse, something else. Her face flushed, her eyes widened at the bluntness of my words. She clearly wasn't used to this level of honesty, and I couldn't help but find it slightly amusing. Barbara, when I said things like, I don't think that shade of lipstick matches your top, or maybe you should change. I don't want the neighbors talking about your cleavage. I wasn't hesitating or unsure. I was giving you a chance to reconsider without crushing your self-esteem. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. Do you know why I did that? She shook her head, visibly confused. Because I didn't want to hurt your ego. That's absurd, she snapped, her face twisting in anger. I can remember plenty of times when you didn't hold back at all. I chuckled. I admit, I wasn't perfect. We both remember the time I said your eyeshadow made you look like a streetwalker, or when I agreed the dress wasn't exactly flattering on you. Her eyes darkened at the memory, that famous cold silence that followed with a sarcastic, thanks for your honesty. And of course, the weeks of icy distance between us. It was then that I realized that blunt honesty wasn't always the best approach, especially when it came to my opinion of your appearance. So you've been lying to me for 35 years, Barbara shot back, her voice filled with fury. It was time to end this conversation. Let's call it an edited version of the truth. I told you that you were the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen, that your workouts made you look younger by a few years, that even Venus would envy your figure. I gave you the same lavish compliments you gave me. It was my way of showing how I saw you, and yes, maybe a little bit to protect your ego too. My ego isn't fragile, she snapped, clearly insulted. Barbara, I said, looking her directly in the eyes, you have a big ass. Her reaction was instant. Shock froze on her face, as if she'd been struck in the chest. What? I smiled, though my words were harsh. You have stretch marks. Your breasts aren't as firm as they used to be. Your hair is starting to gray, and your teeth aren't as white as they once were. Those expensive creams you buy don't hide the wrinkles or your double chin. Maybe it's time to accept aging gracefully because fighting it isn't working anymore. Her mouth dropped open. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Every word hit exactly where I wanted it to. "Oh my God, Oscar," she whispered, utterly stunned. "Barbara, remember the feeling you have right now. Think about it," I said, giving her a moment to process. "Now imagine if I told you I was sleeping with a young woman from work, someone 5, maybe 15 years younger than you. She has a toned body, full breasts, and she's putting her all into the relationship. It's fresh, and she's giving it all her energy. Imagine me coming home to you after seeing her a couple of times a week. How's your ego now? Maybe it's a little fragile too." Barbara's face turned pale. "Yes," she muttered, her voice barely audible. "You never truly understood," I began, and my words carried the weight of the moment. "I was never blind to the truth. I know you're not the most beautiful woman in the world. To be honest, I could walk out right now and, without much effort, find several women whom many would consider more attractive." I glanced at her, but she didn't lift her eyes. Her head bowed in silence as tears rolled down her cheeks. "You're not the most beautiful, not the smartest, and not even the funniest, but to me, you were all of that. In my eyes, you were everything. Where others might see flaws, I saw the life we've lived together. Your breasts aren't as firm anymore because they nourished our children. Your body has changed because it carried them into the world. The lines on your face came from the laughter and joy we've shared together. When I looked at you, I saw our entire life etched on your body. Every scar, every change, it all told the story of the years we've walked hand in hand, and I cherished every detail." Slowly, she raised her head, her face twisted in pain, as if bracing for the final crushing blow. "And now? What do you see now?" God help me, I thought. She's literally asking me to say the cruel words she's expecting. It would be so easy. A part of me, a large part of me, wanted to deliver that final destructive blow, the blow that would break her so completely that she'd spend years trying to rebuild her self-esteem, seeking comfort elsewhere. And yet there she stood, chin raised, ready for it. But here's the thing. It's no longer about delivering the final blow, and it's not just about Barbara anymore. She looked in the mirror, saw time slipping away, and decided she could escape it by running into the arms of a younger man. And when everything collapsed, she tried to hold her head high, throwing challenges and sharp words. But now we both understand. She's fragile, small, and soon she'll be alone. As for me, I've already cried my tears, alone in the car at a quiet park not far from home. For months I wore a mask of indifference, silently mourning the slow, inevitable death of our marriage, all while living in the same house with a woman who had betrayed me. Now it was time to figure out what to do next with my life. The first question was simple. Who did I want to see in the mirror every day? A man who unleashed his anger when the chance came. A man who claimed an empty victory over a broken woman who had already destroyed her own life? A bully? No. I wanted to be the man I knew I could be, a man capable of mercy, kindness, and honesty. I took a deep breath and gently placed my hand on Barbara's. "What do I see now?" I repeated her question softly. "Now I see the woman I spent the best years of my life with. I see the one I trusted with my heart, until I couldn't anymore." I gently squeezed her hand, softly and tenderly. "I see a woman I will miss." She slowly stood, trying to smile, though her lips trembled. The smile couldn't hide the tears still streaming down her face. "It doesn't have to end like this," she said, her voice shaking. "We can still fix this, find our way back." I sighed heavily. "No, Barbara, we can't." "You were right about one thing," I continued. "I'm not fragile, but my trust was, and I can't put myself in that vulnerable position again. I can't let you back in. Yes, we could stay together, sleep in the same bed, go on trips, make new memories, but I'd always wonder." "Wonder about what?" she whispered. "I'd wonder if you were judging me, comparing me to someone else. I'd wonder if you stayed out of love or just because it was easier." "That's not fair," she whispered. "I'm not going to live like that. I finished, my voice firm and final. I believe I have several decades of life ahead of me, and the thought of spending them with someone I don't trust is unbearable. I'm not ready to accept a life where I have to pretend to feel safe and comfortable when those emotions aren't real. I know I deserve better. If you truly loved me, you wouldn't want me to go through this. No one should. Despite all of Barbara's legal experience, I could always see through her, especially at moments like this. I watched her mind at work, selecting arguments, testing them in her head to figure out which might work. But then I noticed that precise moment when she realized it was over. Her eyes dimmed, as if something inside her had extinguished. From that point, she decided not to resist any longer. After that, the divorce process went quickly. We exchanged jewelry for tools, a television for furniture, and I got my partially restored car. In the end, we sold the house, split everything equally, and avoided major legal expenses. But a divorce doesn't end with just signing papers. I still see Barbara often, at our kids' birthdays, family gatherings, and during the holidays. She's changed a lot. The confidence in her eyes is gone. She's gained a lot of weight, and she even started dressing poorly. She's lost her self-esteem, and yes, I'm partly to blame, but she deserved it. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.